Today is about pursuing common sense and fighting for a cause like we seldom get the chance to fight for. We have to find common ground. But I strongly oppose the radical and dangerous efforts to defend, dismantle, and dissolve our police departments.
So the executive order has been signed by the president. I want to bring in White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany to talk about this. And good afternoon to you, and thank you for your time from the North Lawn there.
Thank you.
How would this executive order prevent the death of George Floyd? Let's start there.
Yeah, so there are a number of things. First, this accredits police departments, provides discretionary grants if they meet certain training standards for de-escalation and for use of force. One of those methods is chokeholds. The president has said that he doesn't want chokeholds unless there is a use of deadly force. That's one concrete example. Also ensuring that there are co-responders. So if someone's dealing with mental health or addiction or a drug abuse situation, that a co-responder who's trained in mental health accompanies the department. I think this goes a long way in helping to resolve some of the issues of injustices we've seen across the country.
So two very different cases, but what about Rayshard Brooks in Atlanta? How would this order have saved his life?
So that second component that I talked about, the training, the drug addiction, a lot of what our police officers do, it's not just addressing issues of criminality, it's also addressing issues of substance abuse. In that case that you're referring to, it was a situation where there was allegedly drinking and driving involved. So this would have a co-responder on scene to help address those situations and de-escalate the problem. And let me just say, Bill, this morning was such an emotional moment. When we heard from those families, our hearts broke for those families. The president, I was in the room, heard one-on-one from families who have lost children, like Ahmaud Arbery's mother and many others. It was a very emotional, very touching moment, and this president wanted me to share with you that he wanted to share with these families, I love you, I hear you, I want to help you. He communicated that directly, and he wants to communicate that to the American public.
I'm sure that was a tough moment, but just back to your original answer there, is money the incentive? And so getting the reforms through, do you think? Is that what you're saying?
So that's the first component, is the discretionary grant. So we recognize here at the White House that most of our police officers are good, hardworking people that want to serve this country and serve their communities. We want more good police officers. So one thing we'll do is have a database, national database. So if there's an issue of misconduct, it gets reported in. So for instance, in the case of George Floyd, that officer had 18 infractions. That would be in a national database. So those kind of important changes are what the president is doing to lead.
I can see that. We just had Ray Kelly on, who ran the New York Police Department for years here in Manhattan. He says all this comes down to the local level. Does the president see that as well? Does he agree with that distinction between the federal level and the local?
That's absolutely the case. Look, the states have what's called the police power as embedded in the Constitution, meaning it is the responsibility of states and local governments to do most of these changes. That's where the real changes take place. But this president did everything he could in his federal executive capacity to make changes because he deeply cares about this.
If that's the case, you know, Tim Scott, the Republican from South Carolina, is working on this deal in the Senate tomorrow. What is in that bill? Again, it comes back to the federal level that the president supports.
So I don't want to get ahead of the president on that. We're looking at the Tim Scott bill and others in Congress, but we wanted to set the model, and we did this in coordination with Senator Scott, who has been a leader on this issue. Tim Scott was in the meeting this morning with those families. He led in helping to craft this executive order. So too did the families, and so too did police officers. It really was a process of all stakeholders coming together.
And the senator and the president have spoken this week. I think they were speaking on Sunday night. You're saying they're on the same page together?
They are on the same page. I don't want to get ahead of the president on announcing specific endorsement of legislative proposals, but it is definitely true that they are working in close coordination. Senator Scott was in the Oval Office not too long ago.
Okay, here is Joe Biden's tweet from yesterday. He writes, race-neutral policies are not a sufficient response to race-based disparities. We need to tackle systemic racism head-on and ensure everyone has a fair shot at the American dream. What the left is saying is that racial bias was not addressed in this order today. How do you respond to that?
what was addressed was use of force. We want all Americans to be handled in an equal, fair manner. The president made that very clear, that we're all made in the image of God, and there should be no racism in our policing system, our economic system, our schooling system. He's made that clear. But he fundamentally believes most police officers in this country are good, hardworking people who want to serve their communities and those within them.
Nancy Pelosi just put out a statement. She called it weak.
Yeah, that's so incredibly wrong. This president led. Guess what? There's been one action taken on this, and who has taken that action? President Trump with this executive order. You know, the 8 years of the previous administration with President Obama and Vice President Biden, they had 8 years to make changes. It took President Trump, much like it took President Trump on criminal justice reform.
Two more topics, if I could squeeze them in the time we have left. The Vice President, Mike Pence, earlier today in Fox and Friends referred to a possibility of an outdoor venue on Saturday in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Is that being considered now?
Well, it's certainly possible. That's up to the campaign to make that decision. But we've had, the campaign has had rather 1 million ticketing requests. So I know they want to accommodate as many people as possible, but that's the decision for them to make.
I got you. I know you're not going to give me yes or no, but it could possibly move to a different venue even 5 days before it happens. Is that right?
I'll leave that to the campaign to make that decision.
Okay. All right. Jacksonville, Florida. Florida's seeing 1,000 new cases a day. I saw the Vice President, Mike Pence, just penned a piece in the Wall Street Journal talking about rumors of a second wave will not happen. Testing is also up in Florida. What is the level of concern with the convention, Jacksonville, Florida, and where that is now, Kayleigh?
So we're convinced it will be a safe convention, and we will ensure that all those who attend will be safe. We're ensuring and looking forward to making sure a second wave doesn't happen, and that if there are spikes or embers, as the president said, that we're prepared. We believe we are prepared, and we're encouraged to see that right now the positivity rate in the country is below 6%. Our goal is always below 10%, and it's below 6%. So we are heading in the right direction, but are aware of the embers and the spikes that are out there so that we can put them out and protect the American people.
If that's the case, will we see Doctors Birx and Fauci anytime soon? Because they seem to have disappeared.
Dr. Birx and Fauci are hard at work. I'm in task force with them. I'm constantly gathering the information from them, but we're moving forward on a number of issues from policing while also keeping in mind COVID as we safely reopen the country.
Okay, but just to be clear on this, I read the Pence piece an hour ago. It'll be in the paper tomorrow morning, be online later tonight. Is the White House position that there will not be a second wave of COVID?
Our position is that we're monitoring it. We can't predict the future, but we think we're at a place where we have this under control and we'll keep it under control. But we're monitoring each and every day to ensure that there is not a second wave anytime soon.
Let's hope that's the case. Kayleigh, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate you.